The San Francisco 49ers just got some unfortunate news, but I'm excited to break it down with you and show that there is some hope on the horizon yet. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say in the comments on this one, but if you're new here, I'm Nate. I make daily 49ers content. Please consider hitting that subscribe button if that's what you're looking for. Really appreciate it and really appreciate your guys' involvement on the channel, and all the comments been absolutely fantastic. But the PFF grades came out, and I know PFF's just PFF, right? Grades are just grades, but there's something that I noticed that no one's talking about yet, okay? I haven't seen anybody talking about this, and there's a cliff drop off on both the offense and the defensive side of how they played this week against Miami. And so I want to get to that first and then kind of outline where that drop off is taking place and what that means for the 49ers going forward, and potentially maybe a solution to some of the problems the 49ers have been facing. Now, as you know, okay, George Kittle, my goodness, had an absolute game again. It's been an incredible season for George. He's very close now to hitting another consecutive 1,000-yard season. Good for him. That's fantastic. And of course, no surprise, Deebo Samuel also graded incredibly high. He was the highest graded Niner from PFF related to the game. Now, that doesn't surprise you. I'm sure that shouldn't surprise you at all, right? You got Deebo Samuel. Eric Saubert technically is in there, but he only had 10 snaps, so I'm not so sure if that really counts. George Kittle, then Brock Purdy and Dominic Puni and Colton McKivitz. But graded above 70 is Brock Purdy, George Kittle, and Deebo Samuel. That's it. Minimum 15 snaps. So nobody else in the offense even graded above 70. Usually, on a good game, I like to look at those numbers based on graded above 80. So if you look at just 70, Brock Purdy, George Kittle, and Deebo Samuel were the only three guys who really made, all-around great performance. The thing that I love about PFF, and you can say whatever you want about it, let me know in the comments, that's fine. As always, your opinions are warranted, but the thing that I love about PFF is it takes a lot of things into account that a lot of fans don't like to think about or talk about or, default to. It goes beyond just the basic statistics and gives you a well-rounded picture on how that player has been playing. And so I thought that was really interesting. I really broke down into all of the PFF grades. And I think that unfortunately, we have a bad piece of the news here, which is on the other side of that offensive cliff, which for this week broke off really early, really. After Brock Purdy, from there, it was just pretty quick. What I will say, in terms of how bad it could get, Aaron Banks, Jalen Moore, Jake Brendel, and you'll give Jalen Moore maybe a little bit of he was dealing with a little bit of an injury thing, went down injured, so maybe there's something going on there, so we could write that one off. But at the very, very bottom, the worst graded offensive player could not have been going to the game. It cannot be PTJ. If Patrick Taylor Jr. ends up being the worst graded offensive player in that game, we have a problem. The 49ers only rushed it 18 times. Five of those were, a few of them were Brock Purdy, and 5 of them were Deebo Samuel. So not good enough from Patrick Taylor Jr., and this is a disappointment there because I know, maybe Izzy Abanikanda wasn't ready, okay? Keyshawn Vaughn didn't even really get anything, not even worth putting him out there apparently. And for the 49ers way, and for the Kyle Shanahan way more importantly, for the Kyle Shanahan way and for his scheme and the way that he likes to do things, having that run game makes everything else different. You saw all these screen passes, right? And if you could add some play action, some more play action in there, not a whole lot of play action yesterday, because you have a decent running game, it changes things. It absolutely changes things. So I think the unfortunate reality is we did not get what we were hoping for out of Patrick Taylor Jr., who he got his shot and he knew ahead of time. And I respect this for Kyle Shanahan. It drives me crazy when coaches don't pick a guy and tell him right out the chute, you're my guy this Sunday. And I'm glad that they told him early. He had time to get his mind right for that, had his time to physically, prepare and mentally prepare to be the number one guy. And unfortunately, it did not play out very well, being the lowest graded offensive player. And that's, with the number of different guys that go out there, even just for 3 snaps, he's the lowest graded player total. So that's not a good situation for Patrick Taylor Jr., and that's very disappointing. From my perspective, I think that's disappointing. But you know what? That cliff extends beyond the offense. That cliff extends onto the defense as well. So at the top of there is D. Winters. And massive credit to D. Winters for being on top of that mountain, because a lot of those plays that I was noticing during the game, at least, were happening on special teams where he's just flying in there, accurate, powerful. I love D. Winters. And he also got a lot of snaps at linebacker too. So for him to come out there, I did not write down the exact number of stats. I could look it up in a second here, but for him to be out there for over 50 snaps and to be the highest graded defensive player is something worth considering, worth noting, right? Nick Bosa was second on that list. And from there, D. Winters, Nick Bosa, Cliff. Not a single person rated, let's see here. Yeah, it goes straight down into the 60s after Nick Bosa. Tig Brown only had 4 snaps, so we'll say whatever for that one. Tashawn Gibson only had 3 snaps, so we'll say whatever for that one. So Malik Collins, Renardo Green, Hufanga, that's like the next, if you're trying to make your top 5, those are the guys that are in that list. And that's pretty, unfortunate considering we're going down into the 60s there in terms of overall grades, okay? I don't know, grades are just grades, but I think there's a conversation that needs to happen here about Nick Bosa. This is, again, another unfortunate reality. This one is not as bad as the Patrick Taylor Jr. reality, but it is unfortunate because, Nick Bosa, I started deep diving on his player stats just for this season and his player grades for the season and trying to get a feel for what is going on, because this was a classic 2024 season kind of game for Nick Bosa, where he's not involved in sacks. Pressures are fine. Well, we'll get into the details on that one. Worse than I even thought. It felt like I knew Nick Bosa was there, and I can even close my eyes and imagine a couple of plays where he got to the quarterback, and so it felt like he was doing something. He gets a high PFF grade, and so you think, yeah, you know what? Great job, Nick Bosa. And I will give him credit where credit is due. Those PFF grades take into account where runners go and all of the extra things that an edge rusher has to think about in addition to rushing the passer. So, credit to Nick Bosa on that regard, in that specific area. But 2 pressures, 2 hurries, couple of solo tackles, okay? And you add to that, let's see here. I wrote it down somewhere in here. Nick Bosa, second to worst game in pressures this season, 4th worst game in overall grade this season. So despite the fact that he gets, pretty high up there, when it came to pressures, not so great. Not so great for Nick Bosa. So yes, he technically makes it toward the top. He lands in the top 5 defensive players for a defensive performance that clearly was not very highly rated. That's the point that I'm getting at. Other guys in there, unfortunate. Evan Anderson, Malik Mustafa, Jordan Elliott, YGM. Guys just not having great days yesterday. A lot of guys not having great days. But I want to get to the help wanted ad, all right? Because if I could get there we go. The help wanted ad's interesting for me. Okay, so I saw Brad Graham post this a couple hours ago. Mason Graham should be at the top of the 49ers Christmas list if they continue to be in a position to take him. Continue. Notice that word, but we'll hold on to that for a second. I am still of the belief that you go edge or interior defensive line if one of the elite guys is there, and target offensive line at top of the 2nd round. I respect Brad Graham's take when it comes to anything offensive line related. He's super expert when it comes to offensive line, in my opinion. I have respected every take that he's had so far. And I will say something about Mason Graham. Firstly, he's the top ranked defensive lineman in college football. If you didn't know that, you don't follow college football. He has an 89.9 out of 100 player rating. PFF has him ranked number 3 overall in terms of available draftable players. And then, where's the one I was going to look at? Yeah, so he's ranked number 3 overall, but don't think that means he's going to go number 3, because you know how quarterbacks and skill position players kind of win the first round. So there's a good shot that he's going to be available for the 49ers at what they're currently rated at 11th draft order. So if he's available, this is the kind of guy that's going to be a huge addition to your defensive line, a huge talent, and will massively improve, I think. If you put him, like we got Malik Collins for another year, so you put him next to Malik Collins, that could be a huge improvement. And the 49ers, like, they've been getting a lot out of guys like Evan Anderson, Okuwanu, right? Like getting a lot out of guys that are undrafted players, and you have to give them credit where credit is due for that. Give Chris Kosurik credit where credit is due for that. Give the players credit where credit is due for that. But it doesn't mean that you're going to rest on your laurels. The 49ers need to go in there, and they really need to target offensive line and defensive line, in my opinion. And I think in those first couple of rounds, that will be a key time to do it. This number 11 overall pick, when it's all said and done in a couple weeks and the season is officially over, I think that it's going to be something that the 49ers are going to be doing a lot of thinking about in terms of what they do with that number 11-ish, wherever they end up, position, because that's a really high draft position in terms of what you might be able to get out of the available talent coming out of college. So let me know what you guys think about this take in the comments section. I think this is a great call out from Brad Graham. I don't think there's any reason that I could be wrong. Brad, you can comment if you want that it's just because he's got the same last name, but I don't think that's the case. I like what I see here. I love the take on that one. Let me know what your guys' takes are in the comments. I look forward to reading those with you, reading those as always. Appreciate you very much. Thank you so much. Have a very Merry Christmas if I don't see you for the next couple of days.